All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into something that pretty much affects all of us now, that tangled, complex world of legal, risk, and compliance stuff that runs the cloud. And it all kicks off with one simple act.
Really think about it. Every single time you save a document to the cloud or use a cloud app, you're handing your information over to somebody else. But what does that really mean? Who's on the hook if it all goes wrong? Well, as you're about to find out, the answer is way more complicated than you think.
It wasn't that long ago that a company's data lived right down the hall, on a server in their own building. And that was easy. Your building, your rules. Simple. But the cloud? It just changes the entire game. Now, your data could be sitting in a gigantic data center owned by someone else, maybe halfway across the world. And this isn't just a tech upgrade. It's a huge shift in who has control. Because even though it's their building, with all these global rules, the ultimate responsibility, well, that still lands squarely on your shoulders.
And that brings us to our first huge problem. Suddenly, your data is a world traveler, and guess what? It has to follow the local laws of every single place it lands.
Think of it like this. It's like you're renting a super secure storage unit. But if you live in, say, New York, and you rent that unit in Germany, the German police can get a warrant and open it based on their laws. The cloud is exactly the same. So data from a hospital in Dublin might live on a server in Virginia, which means it suddenly has to deal with both EU and US laws. It becomes this tangled mess of rules that can sometimes completely contradict each other.
And this whole idea has a name: data sovereignty. It's a really critical concept to get your head around. It just means that even in this crazy virtual world we live in, the physical location of the server holding your data still matters. A lot. That one physical spot on the map determines which government gets to knock on the door and demand access.
And this legal map is full of these giant, powerful regulations. You've probably run into some of these big names. You've got GDPR over in Europe, which is all about protecting personally identifiable information, or PII. In the US healthcare world, there's HIPAA for patient data, or PHI. There are even global standards like ISO 27018 built specifically for privacy in the cloud. And believe me, for any company out there, ignoring these isn't just a bad idea. It can be catastrophically expensive.
Okay, this next part, this is probably the single most important thing to understand. Under laws like GDPR, if you're the one who decides why you're collecting data and how you're going to use it, then you are the data controller. See the crown? That's because you hold all the responsibility. Your cloud provider, they're the data processor. Their job is just to follow your instructions. This idea is the absolute foundation of what we call the cloud's shared responsibility model.
So, if your provider is just the processor, how in the world do you make sure they're actually doing what they promised? It's not like you can just walk into one of their massive data centers and do a surprise inspection, and that's where that old saying comes into play. You have to trust them, but you absolutely have to verify.
So how do you verify? Well, you ask for their report cards. And that's basically what these audit reports are. You can ask your provider for their SOC 2 report, which is proof from an independent auditor that their security is legit. Or, if you're dealing with legal stuff, what's called e-discovery, a certification like ISO 27050 shows the provider knows how to handle it. And of course, for healthcare, seeing a HIPAA report isn't a nice-to-have, it's a must-have. These pieces of paper are your only real window into their operations.
Okay, so once you've used those reports and you've found a risk, you have to do something about it. And there are really only 4 moves you can make. You can avoid the risk, maybe just don't use that one feature. You can try to mitigate it by adding extra security. You can transfer it, which usually means getting some kind of insurance. Or if the risk is pretty small and fixing it would cost a fortune, you can make a business decision to formally accept it. The main thing is, you can't just pretend it's not there. Every single risk has to have a plan.
So with all this risk floating around, what's your single best line of defense? What's your most powerful tool? It's not some flashy security software. No, it's that contract you sign with your provider. That thing is your shield.
And this quote right here just says it all. Your contract is not just some legal paperwork you sign and then shove in a drawer. You have to think of it as an active, living security tool. Because if that tool is weak or poorly designed, it can leave you completely exposed with absolutely no one to turn to when things go south.
So what does a strong shield, a good contract, actually look like?
Well, first, you gotta define your needs with crystal clear service level agreements, SLAs, for things like performance. Next, it must include the right to audit, which is your contractual guarantee that you can get those report cards we talked about. And this one is huge. You need a clear exit plan. How do you get your data back if you decide to leave? And finally, you have to define everything. You can't leave terms like data breach up for debate. You have to spell it out so there's zero confusion about who has to do what and when.
So when you put all of this together, you can see that this requires a whole new way of thinking. To really be a cloud pro, you have to stop just being a customer and start being a really smart manager of risk, of law, and of contracts.
If there is only one thing you remember from this entire explainer, please let it be this. This is the absolute golden rule of the cloud. You can pay someone else to manage the infrastructure, but you can never, ever outsource the final responsibility for your data. The provider handles the security of the cloud, the buildings, the servers, the network. But you are always responsible for security in the cloud. That means your data, your apps, your users. That responsibility is always yours.
So I'll leave you with a question to mull over. Take a look at your own situation. Is your cloud contract a real shield, one that you've carefully built to protect yourself? Or is it just a piece of paper waiting for a crack to appear? Honestly, the answer to that could make all the difference in the world. Thanks for joining me.